The university is a learning curve for students. However, academic work is only one aspect of what students learn. The social interaction between them is a vital experience that the students learn from each other. They learn about managing their timetable and prioritizing their tasks. It is tough when students need help understanding an assignment or how to deal with it. Students can receive support in several ways, but they may still need help tackling their problems. At Democratic Education Network, we encourage students to form a study group with peers to support and mentor each other, to solve problems, including managing their studies. This short video by students highlights different ways they tackle their study in general, and specifically coursework. We hope this offers students some ideas studying and managing assignments.
One size doesn't fit all, that this detail applies to education and learning as well. So what I mean in this case, we all need, as we are all unique and amazing, we all need different approach. So accepting them both and let them work together, it was the best way I could ever done, and I hope you will discover the same yourselves. I find very important, and I always do, to attending the lectures, because we don't even realize, but throughout already like the first interaction to sitting there, being present at the lecture, we already start perceiving the information. But most importantly, when I get back home or whenever in my own pace, I will go back to the lecture and I would listen it again and again and again, because every time I would listen to the lecture, I would just find something else interesting and maybe something what I could use for my essay. But there are also other ways how to get information. So I find very helpful also watching or listening YouTube videos, not just random videos, but some lectures or very interesting podcasts, because you can find the topic summed up already like in, I don't know, within 25 minutes episode, and you can listen to them anywhere and anytime. So because we are all very busy, so you can even listen to it whilst you're getting ready or on a train or on a bus. So what I'm trying to say, let's say the lecture from person A doesn't need to appeal to me because I perceive information a different way. But let's say I find a lecture from a person B, and the person B would use perhaps different language or different style of presenting it, and suddenly I would understand it. And then I think the notion that suddenly you understand everything and you got it, you just put these pieces of puzzles together, is such a relief, because you feel that you're actually achieving something.
Now, my first suggestion is to plan your time ahead, if not from day one, from the second week of study, where you're going to have all your schedules ready, so you can plan your commitment around it. It's very important to give yourself a lot of time for self-study, because you're going to have many articles, books, abstract to read in preparation for class, where you can contribute with your ideas, ask many questions, and practice in your writing. If you're not confident in writing essays, or you've never done it before, which is totally fine, there are many tools that university offers, and many workshops where you can learn how to build your essay in the right way without losing lots of precious time.
When it comes to writing essays, it's oftentimes a very daunting and overwhelming task. And I can confidently say that I was somebody when I was younger who could not properly formulate an essay, and it drove me nuts. So when I got to uni, I wanted to make it a point that I knew what I was doing. So my experience has been that there are about 3 things that I always keep in the back of my mind when it comes to writing an essay. And the first one is kind of your basis of what you're working with. You always want to have a proper set of notes, whether that means you're following the Westminster note-taking guideline or you are making it up on your own. Finding a format that fits your learning and your expectations is super important. And for me, that's Cornell notes. For others, that's the Westminster guidelines. And then other people just enjoy taking bullet points. But from your set of notes, you want to try and highlight key points and key arguments and key statistics or facts that you would find prudent to your essay. So let's say you're writing an essay about gender in the Cold War. You want to take time out of your essay to focus on aspects of the Soviet Union or the Cold War and really narrow in on the way women were viewed, or men. The next thing I would say is very important is your outline. Your outline, for me, I take my key points from my note-taking, and I try and organize them within my essay to each paragraph. So if an article has a critique paragraph or an aspect of that, I try to add it to my critique paragraph. And from there, within those key points, you want to elaborate on that. So if you find evidence to argue a certain point, you want to build on that and find more evidence that supports that thing or that argument. And from there, it creates like a background, a foundation for where you're going from. And then additionally, one of the things that regardless of what essay, whether I'm writing an email to my professor or submitting my final assessment, I like to keep in mind that everything needs an intro and a conclusion. Whether it's the overarching understanding of your essay or whether it's specific to a paragraph, you want to have a beginning, middle, and end. And if you don't have the beginning, middle, and end, there is no trajectory for your essay. So an introductory paragraph or sentence is something that you want to create that will catch your reader's eye. So you want it to be enticing and interesting, and I oftentimes go for a question, and then you also want to have that middle chunk where you are very clearly stating your argument or the content of which you're arguing. And then following that up, you want a conclusion. You want something to summarize what you said. It could be a sentence, it could be a paragraph, because naturally in an essay you want a conclusion paragraph. So, I mean, even with your conclusional paragraph or sentence or email or whatever you're sending, you want it to still summarize what you said in that conclusion, because your conclusion should be hitting all the points that you've made in your article, whether they're pro or against the point you're arguing. You want it to essentially reiterate that whole essay. You want to be repeating what you say, so you're kind of like drilling your argument into somebody else's mind. You want to be making them come out of reading it in the sense that, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I agree with your argument against something. You want the reader to see from where you're coming from, which is really hard to do, but at the same time, if you have the proper structure, it's a no-brainer.
Over the last 2.5 years, I've been writing loads and loads of essays. The essays have not been perfect, but I did notice a huge improvement in my grades, especially towards the end of second year, as that's when I actually started taking the advice that the academics have been given and started planning my essays. I really don't know why I never used to plan my essays, but now that I do, I literally noticed a huge improvement in my grades. Now, whether that meant having a quick office hour with my teacher or making a rough plan in my notebook, it did really help, because every time I felt stuck or confused, I knew that I can just turn to my plan and everything that I wanted to mention in my essay will be there. In my plan, I also like to include the structure of my essay. Now, I usually structure my essays with the introduction being first, then the main paragraphs, and then the conclusion. Now, I know a lot of people like writing the introduction last. However, I like writing my introduction first because my introduction usually includes the structure of my essay. This means that, again, whenever I'm feeling lost or stuck, I can reread my intro and I can remember the orders in which I want my paragraphs to be in, and this will also help my essay flow as well as keep me on top of things.
I think the most important thing for me when it comes to essay writing is to consistently do the work throughout the year, week on week, establishing that routine of doing the readings, your seminars. It really helps quickly build a library of sources that you can then pull on when you come to writing an essay. Equally, when I'm doing those reading notes, writing down the full details of the source, the author, the dates, the publisher, the location, anything that you'll need when it comes to writing a bibliography is important to put down on those reading notes, including page numbers as well. You know, for me, if I'm writing my notes, like in the margin, I will put the page number. I spent a lot of time last year going back into sources if I had to clarify something, or even just sometimes check the wording of a quote, which can be quite time consuming when you're trying to write an essay. So I feel like when you're doing your reading notes, putting that extra detail in there really helps make the whole process a lot smoother and efficient. And the last thing you want to be doing is, when you're towards the end of an essay, is trying to find a quote that you've forgotten where it is in the source. So yeah, that's a big one for me. If you've built up that kind of library of sources, when it comes to selecting an essay question, for me it helps a lot, because you can then start to look at what sources you have and what arguments you can support with those sources to support your own arguments and thoughts regarding an essay question. Equally, it helps identify the gaps you might have in that argument, or something, the areas that you kind of want to do more reading on to better understand or get a more balanced argument. So that's quite the consistent work in the library of sources really helps give you freedom, I feel, when you're choosing an essay question. You don't kind of feel like you're stuck to one or the other because you only have limited sources. And then when it comes on to writing an essay, I do structure my essay. I like to kind of have a plan of like what I will use and what sources will go to support those areas of the essay. However, I am someone who likes to change and form the full complexity of my argument whilst writing it. I can't write all the details down, and I think that's fine. I think having flexibility when you're writing your essay is quite important, and equally having friends review your work to help identify how it can be better is quite important as well. So you know, you can sometimes get a bit lost in your own essay, and then someone else can read it and notice something that seems simple or seems obvious, but when you're lost in it, it helps have a fresh set of eyes on it. Equally, reading other people's work, I think, helps a lot. For the same reason, it gives you a bit of a fresh perspective. You can help out a friend or something that seems might not seem obvious to them as well, but could help significantly.
For me, it's all about creating an excellent outline and really putting enough time into your prep work, rather than just sitting down at the computer and trying to type whatever comes to mind. And I found throughout my several years of experience in school that whenever I take the time to do a bit of reading, but then let's say you're writing a 2,000-word essay, really sit down in front of your computer and then break down how many paragraphs do you think that you might need for this essay? How many words would be appropriate per paragraph, you know, and figure out that balance. It always feels so much more doable when I can just focus on one paragraph, the first 500 words, you know, whatever, rather than trying to type things out and it feeling like it's dragging on and taking forever. So the way that I like to do this is I will go on my Word document, separate out my thoughts by the potential paragraphs that they'll fall into, and then have a sort of introductory thought, my main point that I really want to drive home in the paragraph, and then another bit to conclude the paragraph with. And I'll have that in just bullet points on my outline with above, you know, the word count that I'd like to try to stay within. You do that for every single paragraph, and then sometimes I'll be doing reading, you know, with the split screen as I'm writing as well, like continuing to use more sources than what I've accumulated in the prep document. But it really makes everything so much easier whenever I can constantly just look right back at the aims for this paragraph, what point I'm trying to drive home, and then moving forward. It just makes things feel so much easier. And I remember that I used this tip whenever I was approaching my dissertation. Obviously, it looked a little bit different because with that long of a piece of work, you can't really break everything down paragraph by paragraph, but still with the same general idea for chapters, breaking down the outline structure in this way. And it always kept me very focused on what I was writing on, because sometimes whenever I'm sitting down and just trying to type off the top of my head, I'll get carried away and not even realize, and then I spend more time going back and deleting extra words than I don't actually do writing sometimes. So I would just say prep, make an excellent outline, and then stick to that.
The most useful resource that I use constantly doing all of my works, courseworks, essay writings, or any other type of work is online library of the University of Westminster, and it's the best resource for me because of three simple reasons. First of all, it's very easy to navigate there on the website. Second of all, everything there is accredited, so you don't have to worry whether the resource you found is reliable or not. And third of all is that you can easily find a resource on any topic that you like by simply putting keywords into the searching area. It's very easy. I've never faced any problems doing that. I have two main tips. First is to choose the topic that you're very interested in, because it might sound banal. However, it's not just choosing the topic that you like, making it not just an assessment to submit, but the work that you really want to write, when you really want to share your ideas, and when you are interested in writing something, believe me, it becomes easier for you. And the second step is, do not be scared of asking any help from your professors or academics, because they might give you some very helpful advices unless it's a few hours before the deadline. Also, you can ask help from your course mates, your friends, just to read an essay or any type of work that you're doing, and ask for their feedback, because sometimes people might notice or suggest something that you couldn't come up with doing your work, because they obviously look on different things from their own perspective, and that might also be very helpful for your own work.
When I first joined uni in the first year, I haven't been in any sort of education for about 6 years. I left school, I lived in Asia for 2 years, and then when I came back to doing any work, I didn't have much experience in the matter, especially writing essays for uni. And it was a bit of a struggle for me. And one of the first things I started doing was basically looking at what suggestions teachers put on Blackboard or in the module handbooks, and I really didn't find that very helpful. It didn't really paint a picture for me. Then I would go and look at examples, past examples, and I'd be reading through them, and it also didn't help me. But I think the thing in the end that properly helped me improve my essays was looking at my friend Jake's essays, who still is a very good essay writer, and a very good friend of mine. And what I'd do, I'd read through his essays and then see how he structures his essays, and how he would start and finish paragraphs, and how he wrote his conclusion and his introduction, and the process behind writing his essays. And then basically I would try and replicate that, but in my own words. Obviously don't copy anything. And then from that, I basically took what I learned from that and then kind of molded my own way of doing things. So basically I found out that planning an essay wasn't, like, I couldn't literally write down like introduction, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, these are the main things I'm going to talk about. I'd have a rough idea of what I wanted to talk about, and then I'd jot them down, and then I'd go away and do the readings for it. And then the way I ended up doing it was I'd write my conclusion first, and then I'd write the main body of my essay, and the last thing I'd write was my introduction. Because I found that the easiest way to see how I'd form an introduction, because I could see what I've written for my whole essay and in my conclusion, and then I could basically base my introduction and make it very precise and informative and structurally correct of what the outline of what I was going to talk about. And then from that, I'd also ask Jake to read through my essays, and then he would give me feedback on it, and then I'd take on that feedback, and maybe I wouldn't take some of it, and other bits I would.
The best piece of advice I've received when it comes to managing my coursework is to take one large assignment and break it down into smaller ones. I personally get extremely overwhelmed when I see an essay that requires 2,000 words. But when I take those 2,000 words and break them down into 150 word introduction, 400 word paragraphs, 150 word conclusion, separating them into those little assignments seems much more manageable and not as overwhelming as just sitting down and trying to write one 2,000 word essay. Also, when you break it apart into smaller assignments, it makes it easier to plan and manage your time, which I have an issue with, so that's really helpful. Another piece of helpful advice is to make an outline before you even start reading or writing. I do this often when writing essays. I take my question or whatever I'm going to be writing about and write like a vague claim that I'll be making and like what I'll be arguing, and then under like my paragraphs put like a vague idea of how I would support the claim I'm making. This way, when it comes to like doing the readings or actually writing the essay, but especially with the readings, like you know exactly what you're looking for and what sources will be useful and which ones won't be. Also, something you can do to prep for your essay, like in your semester, is doing the readings for your lectures every week. Like if you just see a concept that is constantly coming up or theories that are constantly being talked about, it's useful to write down like take down the definition of what that author is saying, like to the concept or theory, and put it in your notes or keep it somewhere else, because that, like especially international relations, like specific concepts are constantly coming up. So having multiple definitions from multiple different authors already in your notes will be very useful when it comes to actually like coming to write your essay.